And the important, I really enjoy listening, and I've learned a lot from listening to academics from Hong Kong. I'm just doing more comparative stuff. My role is to compare it to other places. I've done research, not, I'm never going to have kind of in-depth knowledge that the distinguished panelists have. Um, but from comparing it to other places, which is my specialty, there's either a road in which there's some meaningful concessions, and I mean much bigger ones than people probably thought as early as June or July, but real concessions. Or I don't see the protesters giving up because, as I said, they feel like this is their last chance to stand up for their city and for two systems in one country. So that's what the turning point is, and I hope it can resolve as well as possible. Um, but it's a major turning point, even though the elections have brought a little bit of quiet this week. I hope it's not because the government misreads what this quiet is. It's giving the government a chance to respond. It's not that people gave up. They made a statement now through the election. And as we were hearing, it was seen as a referendum. People are kind of like saying, okay, we've done everything we can to give you our message. So now they're trying to see if they've been heard. And if they feel like they haven't been heard, I feel like, I don't like making predictions, but what I've seen over many months makes me think that people would be even angrier because when I talk to them, they say, we tried everything. We marched peacefully. There's been violent confrontation. Now they voted. The ball is very much in, I guess, governments and mainland China's court.
Thank you for input, Professor Tufisi. Okay, so first questions is an online question, and that is also my question, and it is mainly for you, Professor Tufisi. A viewer and also myself would like to ask, what do you think the end game will be? How this is going to end? Because in Hong Kong only has a partial democracy, and it has a rigid power structure, and somehow the district council elections came quite timely as a referendum. So usually when you're comparing to other cases you experience, all over the world, how this is usually going to end? Because we see maybe in Egypt, I mean in the first revolution, the dictator stepped down. But there are, of course, lots of twists and turns afterwards. And in Syria, it went even worse. It now became a protracted civil war. So in your view, how is this going to end? And of course, we will also have the two Dr. Jones to have the views as well. Okay, Professor Tufisi.
So I'll go first, and I will let the two Dr. Jones probably talk in depth. I mean, none of us have a crystal ball. None of us have a crystal ball. What I can say is how I don't think it's going to end. I don't think it's going to end with the people of Hong Kong quietly giving up. They can be suppressed, authoritarians can come, tanks can roll, all of those are possibilities, and I hope none of that happens. But I don't think that they can just sort of let the movement just sort of wither away without significant changes. So if it's crushed, maybe it will be crushed, and I think that would be terrible. It will not be a minor thing because the people seem very determined and united.
So can you draw any comparison with other revolutions?
Right, so I mean, if you
rebellions?
want to compare, obviously people are talking about the Egyptian one, and that was a terrible one because the people tried, and then didn't bring stability. Just this year, more protests broke out. So you can buy some time by authoritarian methods, but they're not very sustainable because you're not listening to the people. Right now, there are protests in mainland China, right? You can crush people, and if you don't listen to them, if there's not some form for them to participate in their own governance, it creates fragility because, you're a leader and everybody's telling you, oh, everything's great, they're not telling you the truth. You don't know what the problem is, so you can't fix it. So, authoritarian stability tends to be very fragile. It goes on for a while, and then you see the crisis come up again. And that's what we've seen in other places.
Yeah, that sounds very much like Hong Kong. So how about the two, Dr. Jones?
Yes, in the past few months, I have been repeatedly asked about the question about the end game. Yes, the end game. In June, I went to Taiwan for a conference, and the official also asked me the same question. How would you estimate about the end game of this protest? At that time, it's only June. Many people asked the same question. As I can recall, I also, when early 2015, when the umbrella movement come to an end, some people say that democratic movement in Hong Kong came to an end game, right? Or even before, in 2010, when the talk on political reform finally come to a point that 10 more legislators have been added to the LegCo, some people believe that it is an end game for democratic movement in Hong Kong. But you know that after 2014, after the closing down of the umbrella movement, if you agree with Dr. Jung that this is a continuation of the umbrella movement, then we know this is not an end game. That was not an end game, right? Even at this time, for this protest, even the government or the police use additional brutality to crack down the movement. I don't think this is going to be the end game. As I just mentioned, the expectation for a higher degree of democracy and autonomy had been promised by the Basic Law and by a lot of informal promises made by leaders in China, by the CCP. At this point, when I had chance to discuss with officials from mainland, I still repeatedly say that I felt I'm being cheated because what had been promised to my generation had not been naturalized yet. And you are making meaning from a comma, from a colon, from an open bracket, from the Basic Law and from other documents. So this is totally unacceptable. And you know from this recent protest that young people are not just what we stereotype them as. They are determined, they are able to make connection, they are growing up digital, and they are adhere to some universal value quite strongly, or even stronger than our generation. They are more persistent on asking for accountability from the government on the recent chaotic situation. Just a few days ago, I talked with a group of my students. You know that for this group of young students, they have an idea of migrating even when they are in the college. Of course, I feel saddened about that because when I was a college student, I never considered migration. When I graduate from college, at graduate from college, we have good chance to migrate to overseas. In 1989, after the June 4th movement, a lot of people migrate to overseas. But we choose to stay. When we heard that many young students, when they are still in the college, they consider migrating, I feel sad about that. And I always think that we could not afford to lose our young people. But just a few days ago, I talked with a group of my students, and they told me, Dr. Jung, we have given up the idea to migrate. This is a war of longevity.
鬥長命.
A war of longevity. We will stay and fight to the very end until democracy become our reality in Hong Kong. I don't know what they will do in the next 10 years. But I would say that they are growing up digital, but surprisingly, they could be quite determined, adhere to some universal value. They are creative, they are flexible, they are quick learners. You know quite well. When I bought a digital camera, I have to keep the menu quite well in case I have to make reference to them. But for my son, they throw the menu away straight away, and they know every advanced feature. I don't know why.
Okay, how about we let Dr. Robert Jones share thought too? Yeah.
Yes.
First.
鬥長命之餘咧，仲要傳宗接代啊。What I mean is that it's not just a battle of longevity, but also bringing out more younger, better younger generations. So everyone has a responsibility. Okay. The younger Dr. Chong has basically covered most of my assessment of how the protest or the event will end. But do let me chip in two kind of perspectives. On this question of how things would end, how this movement will end, I've been asked for quite a lot of times. I'm just repeating a little bit without overlapping too much with what Hima has mentioned. We could answer it from a very technical or very philosophical perspective. From a very technical perspective, it will end. Things always end. Think of the umbrella movement, it ended. Think of the June 4th movement, 1889, it ended. But you could also say it has never ended. They never ended. Without the umbrella movement, we won't be seeing the, I don't know what movement it is, the water movement, isn't it? Some kind of movement we are seeing. I would say without the June 4th movement or Tiananmen Square movement, we won't be seeing the war as it is because we didn't benefit too much from that movement. I mean, the Chinese, our generation, we just watched it, cried. But Europe changed, all right? The world changed because they've learned from that movement. They didn't really participate, but they've learned. And then the Arab movement, and then you could see Sunflower movement, and then coming back to Hong Kong, all these movements. Well, from a very philosophical, sociological perspective, things never ended. Okay, you just carry on. The ideas are there. So it depends on how you look at it. But of course, I believe that question, the person who answered this question want a very simple answer, what will happen tomorrow or one month later. Well, I would just switch that question the other way around. Because I don't want to go into all these perspectives which we have been, and I have been repeating all that, but ask how you want it to end. In which way you want it to end. You as an individual, as an audience, myself as a professional, you must have some ideas of how you want it to be ended. Ended in a philosophical, whatever way it is. And if you could think of a way, perhaps you could make it, you could change the course of history a little bit. So without going into all those objective kind of analysis, cold-blooded analysis of how things would happen, I've tried very hard to do that while doing all the cold-blooded data analysis, put in some warm-blooded kind of inspiration into all those analysis. I think yesterday, myself and our institute actually launched an idea, a plan, and we called it the Community Integration Plan. In Community Integration through Civility and Democracy, it's called CICD, if you want it. It's a 民主社區互助共融計劃. Go to our website, tori.hk, and a lot of information there. I'm not going to say explain the nitty-gritty of it, but I just want to show to all of you that in my position as a retired professional, as somebody who cares about society with figures and with sentiments, I think instead of asking what things would happen, I just propose how things could be better. And in this CICA proposal, I'm suggesting everybody to make use of this opportunity, be it good or bad, which has come to us, that we have a landslide majority in the district councils. We have new councillors. I don't know who, basically I don't know them, okay? They might be very young, they may be very compassionate, they may be very inexperienced, they might finally become power cravers, I don't know, but there has been a change. There is a significant change, and the change has already occurred. These councillors will come into office first day of next year, but they should be working towards it already. Society should be working towards that already. So I'm suggesting that everybody should think along the line of how to rebuild our society starting from the community. And by community, it basically means a smaller community. It could be a district council constituency. It could even be your housing estates or even your own building. All right, think of it that way. But of course, I'm not asking people to go again for 社宅病種, okay? But it's nice to have social integration with a lot of resources, okay? For elderly people, they really need it, okay? Yes, make them happy. But young people are not happy. We are not happy. And we now have the community to be rebuilt. Can we do something about it? I said we could. Because at the district council level, at least if there is enough commitment amongst volunteers, can start rebuilding our community by mutual respect of everybody. There are bound to be conflicts, so resolve it in a democratic way. So with all these initiatives, I hope we could actually make better use of this situation, which is relatively peaceful in the past week. This window could be closed soon, but we want to make it remain open for a longer time for us to work better for a better Hong Kong. So that is us how things would end. Ask you how you want the world to end, okay? Thank you.
So there are things that will end and there are things that will never end. And making babies will change the course of history. That's Dr. Jones' philosophy. Okay, here comes the second questions. Because even I myself was telling you that government and Beijing did everything wrong in the past 6 months. But I think the two Dr. Jones have raised at least a point that Dr. Robert Jones says we feel, or people might think, the economic problem is the main problem. Could be a diversion, and Professor Jones raised that this protest, this movement, is intentionally shaped or stereotyped as a youth protest, even as a population-wide protest, and is also people would tend to perceive it as a generational conflict as well. And this goes back to Professor Tufekci's work. In your work, you said the common government strategy is the denial of attention, focus, and credibility. Do you think this is the case in Hong Kong, or do you think it is working? Because it might be deeper than what I thought.
Right. So that's a common strategy, but doing it requires understanding what's going on. And right now, for example, when the government says one thing and there's a lot of video that shows something else, it doesn't really work, right? So misinformation campaigns or denying attention can work. For example, after they did the tear gas, initially there was a waiting period, and then there was a lot of argument within the factions in the movement, right? They kind of waited. If they kept tear gassing it, right, every time you tear gas it, you're creating unity among the protesters. Whereas in this particular case, they keep generating video that gets people upset because they're seeing people getting eaten up or they're seeing a lot of tear gas. So I still think those are the methods for censorship, which is like disinformation, denying credibility. You do it badly, it doesn't work. So I don't think the government of Hong Kong has been able to either distract people from these protests or make them question the credibility of their protesters, partly because their own credibility is very low. So Carrie Lack's done one listening event. She did one event when she listened to people. The people that she listened to were supposedly randomly selected. And lots of them got up and said they're unhappy with the police. So even though these were the people that were selected. And I waited outside that event. And there was like maybe 100 protesters around midnight, and she wouldn't come out. And then around 3 a.m., there was about 30 people left. And even then, they sent like fake cars and then went out the other door. And I thought to myself, look, if you're the leader of a city, you're the chief executive officer, if you're here, and if you can't even see 30 protesters heckle you, politicians see that all the time. They would then, I'm there, right? I'm an eyewitness. There's maybe 30 people left, and she wouldn't come out. She waited 3 hours inside, and then came out the back door and just escaped. If you are that separated from the people, then you can't, you'll get surprised, and you can't, when you don't have credibility, you can't use those methods that I just talked about. That's one, it just goes back to the same thing. I don't, other people can have other answers to it. This government has been very bad at listening to what's happening. It can't manage it. It has an information problem. I don't know if they really don't understand it or if they're just pretending not to understand it. I can't read people's minds. But just that was very telling to me that she would rather wait 3 hours inside the building than come out of the protest.
Yeah, I think this is one of the main reasons that create the divergence between the protest view and also the public or the outsider's view. And I think Dr. Robert Jones' post has a lot to do to bust those myths and perception. So the very last question before we go, and this is for Professor Tufekci as well. So after seeing Hong Kong, after seeing this round of protests, do you still see the fragility of leadless movement as you mentioned in your book, or you have changed your view after Hong Kong?
So that's a very good question. But I would really see a big test of it, because usually that fragility comes when there's a decision to be made. So if the government had been smart and had said, all right, I'll give 2 demands, right? Let's say in July, it had said, okay, we take back the extradition bill. And if they had created an inquiry into the police misconduct that put lots of us academics on it, and academics can be very slow, right? We take years to write reports. So if they had just done those 2, then the movement would have been at a crossroads. Do you take those 2? Do you keep protesting? Do you go for 3? Do you go for 4? So I would have had a good test case in Hong Kong, was to see if a leaderless movement in a very digital city, as the professor was saying, these kids, they're digital natives, they're very strong, if they know what they're doing that way, if they could overcome fragility we saw in other network movements. But the government's been so cracked down, and the protesters have remained so unified, that I didn't really get a test case to see if that kind of decision-making crisis or tactical freeze would happen. So I'm still watching. Maybe this one will turn out to be the one where they can use Lidong and their polls and their online discussion in a way that allows them to do tactical shift. But to see that, we would have to first see the government try to do that, and we haven't seen that yet.
So it seems you don't think too highly of the government. That's my thought too. So basically,
they were like, whoever was telling them, I don't know if they really believe all these things or not, but clearly their view of what's going on and what's actually going on have been very separated. Yeah.
Yeah. So the tough decision moment still hasn't come. So I'm afraid time is really run out. So I'm afraid we really have to end here. So thank you all our guests for our generous and valuable input. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to add one word about endgame. What I meant is I don't see any endgame if the government insists on police brutality and telling two quotes from the movie Terminator for this endgame. The first quote is, "The future has not yet been written," and the second quote is, "I'll be back."
Okay, thank you, Professor Tufisi. Hope you will get well. Hope you recover really soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you
Thank you,
again.
everyone.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
唔該晒咁多位，咁啊可以咁嚟到台下休息一陣啦。咁我相信咧頭先3位嘉賓啦，同埋我哋嘅主持袁博士咧，就住過去幾個月嘅運動作出咁詳細嘅分析咧。究竟 end game 係點？大家應該都有嘅一個答案。咁稍後落嚟，我哋喺11點鐘就會進行第2節嘅活動啦。咁我哋假若大家早前係報名參與咗何以處理青年嘅無力與絕望，咁就唔需要啦，唔需要走嚟走去，咁就留喺呢一度，就係力保展藝場。咁假若大家係報咗名參與怎樣與青年建立信任，咁就要麻煩你哋咧移師到上去嘅麥禮賢劇場嗰度。咁如果大家死啦，唔係好記得嘅話咧，唔緊要。其實我哋嗰個 pass 咧係好貼心咁幫大家做咗個標記嘅，因為第2場嘅活動，如果2A 嘅話咧，就喺呢一度進行嘅；若然2B 嘅話咧，就可以上到去上高麥禮賢劇場嗰度參與活動啦。咁如果大家就冇報到第2節嘅活動啦，咁亦都可以喺場嘅呢一邊啦去離開。咁稍後咧，下晝我哋亦都會有唔同嘅精彩活動啦，俾大家去參與㗎。咁若然大家有任何疑問，歡迎你問我哋在場嘅工作人員。唔該晒咁多位。